Hello, today I thought I would do something different. I normally talk about movies and television, but today I thought I would be a high school graduation speaker. I like to be creative in all forms, and I saw a lot of high school graduation and college graduation speeches on YouTube recently, and I think I could do that. I'm not famous, so my odds of being invited to speak at a high school are very low, but let's imagine that I am famous, or let's imagine that this goes viral. Without further ado, here is my speech. Okay. Hello, and thank you for having me. Generic Hi USA, and I want to wish a congratulations to all the students. Ideally, because I'm addressing a mass audience and it's such a personal milestone, I would love to be able to speak to every one of you and craft a specific blessing for you about your future. But as logistics have it, I'm going to address a mass audience, and my experiences and the things I'm going to talk about might not reflect your high school experience, but I'm going to try to be as close as I can. My high school experience, what I would call a very positive one. I'm sorry to those people who think it's not cool to admit that you liked high school. It wasn't perfect. I didn't make the baseball team, and I was crushed by that. I didn't make the advanced band. I didn't go with my first choice prom date. I sometimes wondered if my friends were my real friends. I had that kind of drama. I had, all kinds of drama. And most importantly, I did not get the grades I wanted or thought I deserved. I ended high school. My very last test was a calculus exam, which I thought I was ungraded fairly on. And for several years afterwards, whenever I would pass by my old high school, I would often curse the fact that I got a C instead of a B, the B that I thought I was robbed of in AP calculus. But at the same time, circumstances shape the way we view high school. In that case, it could be your family circumstances, your mental health. It could be what came before high school. Sometimes it could be like a breakup that sours you on high school if it happens right towards the end. In my case, I was bullied quite a bit in 6th and 7th grade. And as a 12 or 13-year-old, I reached the conclusion that if I was ever popular, and if I ever had the respect of my peers, life would be all right. So when I got into high school, things changed. I became more well-liked and formed some real connections, and I didn't take that for granted. And I also found high school to be a place where I went from thinking I wouldn't be capable of being good at something to actually being good at stuff, and the thrill of discovering that I could be athletic, that I excelled in a sport, in this case track and field, that I could discover musical talents, that I could stretch and be certain things and move my way. And I also started to really not take for granted the town in which I grew up in high school. That might be your experience. I might have spoken to the positives or negatives of your experience. And I want to address the fact that we all experienced something pretty amazing, and I want to talk about it in two ways. The first is that I want you to consider that high school is a unique American tradition, just as much as baseball or the Jazz Age or the Wild West or the Age of Discovery or the Abolition Movement or a number of other things that are just uniquely, gloriously messy part of what we as an American society have invented. Adolescence, the thing that you have experienced and fortunately you're not done with, is not something that exists in the Animal Kingdom. After you wean off your mother's milk, you're off on your own. Similarly, this country started out with mostly agrarian societies, and you would just get educated in one little schoolhouse with maybe one teacher, maybe two teachers, and towards maybe the age of 12 or 13, you would just go back to the field. Things like social cliques, dating, your parasocial relationships with your teachers, your friendship circles, especially the sort of frivolous nature of them, did not exist in the early days. Then the Industrial Revolution came about, and rather than laying low in the field, our children were worked to death. The death rate for infants lowered because of better technology, and people there were more mouths to feed. So everyone worked in the factories, and this didn't exist. So this has been a relatively recent thing, and along with this recent development of adolescence is something that, just like the Wild West, is a romanticized view of it. The Wild West wasn't as glamorous as we might think looking back, but they needed to sell dime novels to the Easterners, so they would go west. In the same way, there's been an entire industry that we should be aware of that glamorized adolescence. In my day, we watched Saved by the Bell in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade before we ever entered high school. And we fell in love with the adventures and the diversity and easy to spot hierarchy, because you knew exactly who the nerds and who the jocks were of Saved by the Bell. And through Riverdale and One Tree Hill and Gossip Girl, through young adult novels, through franchises, through comic books, through actual books, and movies, of course, we have developed a glamorized view of high school before we ever entered into a high school. And some of you might have found that your high school experience didn't match that reality. But here's the thing. Your high school experience was actually better than that reality. Because, for example, on Saved by the Bell, the parents don't show up a lot. They don't show exactly how much work it takes to maintain a grade. There's only 30 minutes in the show. All the studying that you need to do to pull off good grades that Jesse and Screech and apparently Zach got, it's not on the show. You live the actual experience with all the warts and all that, the idealized view can only touch. The second thing I want to say is that your high school experience should be celebrated because it was insanely busy. It was insanely full of the activity that adults can only dream of. For example, I wake up around 9 a.m. And in high school, I had to get to school at 7:30, and I had 2 periods before the time that I would now be awake. So in 10th grade, for example, my first period, I had a great AP European history teacher, and I learned all about diplomacy, tactics, negotiation, armies, and the creation and dissolution of some of the world's greatest empires on first period. On second period, something completely different. I had PE. So I would play dodgeball, I would throw objects at people, I would shoot balls into hoops, I would run around the track, I would play sports I never really heard of, like handball, and, it was eventful. There's no way that high school is not the most eventful period of your life. Even if you do nothing between when you get home at 2:30 or 3 p.m. and the end of you go to sleep, you still had 7 different periods for the last 4 years of your life of doing wildly different things. The average person could be painting 1 minute, solving math equations the next minute, running around a track the next minute, and playing an instrument and learning a foreign language. Adults rarely have that much going on in a single day. On top of that, there's extracurricular activities, there's social relationships, there's family relationships to uphold. Some of you have economic obligations to uphold. And on top of that, this wildly messy experience of adolescence has gotten more eventful and wild and chaotic in recent years as the arms race for college has intensified and more people have started charities, increased their extracurricular activities, written whole novels just to look good on their college applications. I invite you. With the sheer eventfulness going on, it is mathematically impossible to not find a few moments of joy, a few things that you could pick up and build on. So even if you don't rate the last 4 years, as 5 stars, there have been moments of joy for all of you. There have been moments of exploration, especially. There have been moments where you also mattered. It's hard to not walk through the schools for 4 years without making an impression on your teachers, your other students, and especially your family, your guardians, your parents. However, in terms of watching you develop and grow over these years. So, in conclusion, what I would say is, If you rated this experience of high school as one that was a positive one, I am very happy for you. Don't get stuck in high school. Don't peak in high school. No, I'm just kidding. That can be a struggle, I guess, when you leave high school to think, oh, is it going to get better and how? Just find ways to build upon this experience and keep it close to home. And if you didn't, I urge you to look at the positive. I think this is a time where the achievement was being here. And I urge you to also build upon this experience. And I urge you to, lastly, I also understand that none of you are defined by this experience. Adolescence is certainly not over. Science and everything, and everyone else is saying that, it's in the early 20s, so you still have time to go, and the learning and the adventure really never stops. Thank you so much.